Good day, everyone. So here's the story that was given to us, entitled Robinson Crusoe, of course, prepared by Group 7. So here's the reporters, led by Leah Domingo, that was me, and followed by Nelian Rose Fontilo. Next with is Paula, Beatrix, Eroza, and Ken Luzcardo. So of course, let's know about the author of Robinson Crusoe, namely Daniel Defoe. So he is an English writer, trader, journalist, pamphleteer, and spy. So Robinson Crusoe, that was written by Daniel Defoe, was published in 1719, which is claimed to be the second only to the Bible in its number of translations. So now, let me present to you these characters or main characters of Robinson Crusoe. So first we have Robinson Crusoe. So Robinson Crusoe is the novel's protagonist and narrator. Crusoe begins the novel as a young middle-class man in New York in search of a career. His father recommends the law, but Crusoe yearns for a life at sea, and his subsequent rebellion and decision to become a merchant is the starting point of the whole adventure that follows. So next we have Friday. So Friday becomes Crusoe's servant after Crusoe saves his life when Friday is about to be eaten by other cannibals. So next we have Portuguese captain. So the Portuguese captain is the sea captain who picks up Crusoe and the slave boy, Suri, from their boat after they escape from their Moorish captors and float down the African coast. So next main characters is the Spaniard. So one of the men, the Spaniard is one of the men from the Spanish ship that is wrecked off Crusoe's island, and whose crew is rescued by the cannibals and taken to a neighboring island. So lastly, we have Suri. Suri is a non-white Arab or black slave boy only briefly introduced during the period of Crusoe's enslavement in Sally. So, to share more about Robinson Crusoe, may I call on Miss Paula Eroza. Thank you.
So, my name is Paula Beatrix Eroza. So, I will discuss the introduction of the novel entitled Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Robinson Crusoe was written by Daniel Defoe, a canonical foundation in the art of novel and story writing. It was long considered a true story instead of a work of fiction, causing confusion about the author with the hero of the story. Next. The novel is also a subject of various critics, picturization, graphics, and even stage plays. Robinson Crusoe, with its simple narrative style, was well received in the world of literature and is often credited to being the beginning of realistic fiction in the genres of literary. So the novel Robinson Crusoe tells the story of a young and impulsive Englishman that defies his parents' wishes and takes to the sea seeking adventure. The young Robinson Crusoe is shipwrecked and cast away on a remote tropical island for 28 years. The story may be based on the true life events of Alexander Selkirk, a Scottish castaway who survived 4 years on the Pacific island, or Henry Pittman, a political rebel surgeon castaway from a Caribbean penal colony. This classic tale of adventure features cannibals, captives, and mutineers. Some regard it as the very first modern mutineers. Some regard it as the first novel in the English language. Launching the publishing industry, Daniel Defoe published Robinson Crusoe on April 25, 1719. Its original title must not have a fit on the cover. the life and strange, surprising adventures of Robinson Crusoe, of York mariner who lived 8 and 20 years, all alone in an inhabited island on the coast of America, near the mouth of the great river of Orinoco, having been cast on shore by shipwreck, wherein all the men perished but himself, with an account how he was at last strangely delivered by pirates. So the setting of the Robinson Crusoe was pabalik, York of 17th century England. Middle class home Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe is an Englishman from the town of York in the 17th century, the youngest son of a merchant of German origin. Next is Africa. He aligned himself with other planters and undertook a trip to Africa in order to bring back a shipload of slaves. One person he met was the master of a ship was about to go to the Guinea coast of Africa for trading. They tried to give fight, but their ship had much less fighting equipment and not nearly as many men. The result was the ship was captured and Crusoe was taken prisoner and carried to the port of Sali. Next is Brazil. He escapes from the pirates and he ends up in Brazil. In Brazil, he starts plantation and earns a good fortune from it. He became the owner of sugar plantation, hoping to increase his wealth by buying slaves. Next is Island, or also called as Masashera. The island is the place Robinson Crusoe gets stranded after his ship gets destroyed during a storm. It is a symbol of his survival and development as a human being. He finds himself as on an uninhabited island where he spends 28 years adopting the isolated island. Crusoe and the others were shipwrecked. He was thrown upon shore only to discover that he was the sole survivor of the wreck. So, the summary of the setting was the story begins in mid 17th century York with a brief account of Robinson Crusoe's early years. From there, it moves to the Moorish port of Sali, where Crusoe is imprisoned after his capture by pirates, and then to Brazil, where he set up a planter after his escape. From his Brazilian plantation, Crusoe set out on an African voyage that ends in shipwreck. The sole survivor, Crusoe lived his next 28 years on a desert island situated off the South American coast. Crusoe's new home is a small hilly island populated only by wild animals and birds. Crusoe is unfamiliar with most of the terrains, luxuriant vegetation, but he finds sugarcane and tobacco plants, melon and grapevines, and citrus trees. On a journey to the far side of the island, he sees a nearby landmass that he is unable to identify. In stark contrast to the teeming city where Crusoe was born and raised, the island is an unspoiled paradise, an example of untamed nature.
So my name is Fontilo Nelian Rose, and I'm going to tackle about the rising action, climax, falling action, and denouement of the story of Robinson Crusoe. So the rising action begins when the Moroccan pirates take Crusoe into slavery. But with a little help from some other slaves, Crusoe escaped and traveled to Brazil, where he becomes a plantation owner and he becomes pretty successful. But a shipwreck strands Crusoe on an island, killing all the other crew. Crusoe lives alone in this island for 23 years. Also, during that time, he raises livestock, he grows crops, he builds fortification, and he documents his experiences embracing Christianity. Then Crusoe rescued the captive, whom he named Friday. For the day of the week, he saved him from his cannibal tribe. In the climax of the story, Crusoe and Friday help an English captain who's been a victim of the mutiny. They fight off the mutineers, take the ship back, and strand some of the prisoner on the island. Crusoe finally is ready to return to England, and he does. In the following action, Crusoe learns that he has made a fortune from his plantation in Brazil. We see how his Christian values have grown and changed him during his time on the island, and he gives away a great deal of his fortune. However, a thirst of adventure still remains close to his soul. So he embarks on a new adventure during the denouement. Crusoe embarks with a small crew in the new adventures in the mountains between Spain and France, where he fights wolves and bear. He married, had child, and his wife sadly passed away. Crusoe was even able to return to his beloved island to see that the new colony has sprouted there.
Hi guys, my name is Ken Luzcardo. This is the moral lesson of Robinson Crusoe. Crusoe shift from disavoidance to obedience. Show every man journey from suffering to God, grace and mercy. Work hard is very important in our life. It makes us very disciplined and successful in life. The moral lesson I learned for the story, the Robinson Crusoe, is the is that a person can success against all odds with the right combination of hard work, planning, thrift, resourcefulness, and religious faith.
And my with my own application from this novel, Robinson Crusoe, in terms of parenting, as a son and daughter, we have to not just depend on what we think we can, but also we have to rely as well or ask for guidance from our parents because they know what's best for us. That's
So the application in the story that I've gathered is when the stage in Crusoe's spiritual life. He tends to call upon God selfishly and when his life is in real danger. He is quick to forget his promises and vows to God. And his father, once he is out of trouble after Crusoe has shipwrecked on the island and is alone, we start to see a more self aware Crusoe. So, whether one is religious or not, remaining static is a hard thing to achieve morally, and our motivations aren't always as pure as we would like them to be. But of course, do not lose hope because God will never leave us in failings.
So for my application to this novel was all our discontents about we desire arise from a lack of things for what we have.
So that's the end of our report about the novel of Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. We're hoping you guys gain knowledge from this and thank you so much for paying attention.